Hello and welcome back to Storytime with Mr. B. Today we're reading Johnny Appleseed Plants Trees Across the Land. John Chapman, Wandering Planter. When the United States of America was young, much of its land was wild frontier. Pioneers set out to claim land for their families. One of the pioneers was a man named John Chapman. John was born in Massachusetts in the late 1700s. He spent most of his life wandering in the wilderness of Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Indiana. But he wasn't just wandering. Everywhere he went, he planted apple trees. The apple trees John planted provided food for people. Just like John spread apples throughout the land, people spread stories about him. They said he was kind, peaceful, strong, and humble. They called him Johnny Appleseed. After John died in 1845, his stories grew. Johnny Appleseed soon became an American legend. If you saw John Chapman as a youngin' in Massachusetts, you'd never guess he'd grow up to be a pioneer. Right skinny feller he was. Didn't know much about traveling or exploring. Yes sirree, John was as happy as a worm in an apple right there in his dad's apple orchard. One day, John learned about the pioneers heading west to settle new land. They needed apples for food and trading. Soon, John had a dream, and he told his brother all about it. Beautiful apple orchards will rise all over the frontier, he said, grinning with joy, and I will be the one to plant them. John gathered up as many apple seeds as he could. He pulled them from the cider press. Then he asked neighbors for their seeds. Them seeds was like trash to folks. Eventually, he had collected enough seeds. He put them in a leather bag, and then he headed west. Now, if you saw John Chapman heading into the wild all alone, you still wouldn't think he looked like much of a pioneer. Shoot, most folks said he was downright funny looking. His long, dark beard was a tangled mess. He wore a tin pot for a hat and an old coffee sack for a shirt. He didn't even wear shoes. Don't you mind what he looked like, though? He was seeing his dream come true. He headed toward the Ohio River Valley, deep into the frontier. John Chapman found a perfect spot along the splashing shores of Licking Creek to start his work. He was the only person around for miles and miles. The trees made a thick web overhead. Clouds of bugs buzzed in the air as he inched his shovel into the soil. John dropped seeds, covered them with dirt, and watered them. Then he moseyed on down the creek to plant more. For years, John walked all over the frontier, planting apple seeds. He got to be a right welcome sight for families living there. If you think that's because John brought good things with him, you're darned too. John sold seeds and trees to those who needed them. If people didn't have enough money, well, he just gave them what they needed anyway. John didn't bring only apples and trees and seeds. He brought stories and goodwill too. Children always asked, "What did you bring us today, Johnny Appleseed?" That's what people had started calling him. Johnny Appleseed gave ribbons and other gifts to the children. He stuck pins in his feet to entertain them. "My feet are so tough from walking, nothing can hurt them," he said. "Johnny," the adult said, "would you stay in our home tonight? We have a warm fire and a warm meal for you." Johnny Appleseed was so kind and wise, people wanted to help him. But most of the time, he preferred to eat and sleep alone outside, even in the winter. "No thank you," he said. "The starry sky will be my shelter tonight. I'll cook my meal in my own pot." American Indians welcomed Johnny Appleseed to their villages. Though natives and pioneers often distrusted each other, they trusted Johnny. He brought them gifts, stories, and good cheer, same as he did everywhere he went. "You can plant an orchard with these seeds," Johnny said. After a visit, he'd be on his way, wandering barefoot through the countryside. That was just the way he liked it. One day he was wandering through a field. just a humming a tune to himself. Right then he saw a farmer about to shoot his own horse. "What's the trouble?" Johnny asked. "It's old Bernadette here," the farmer replied. "Her leg's broken." Johnny Appleseed knew just what to do. He healed Bernadette's leg and helped her get strong again. People said Johnny could heal anything using nothing but his hands. Not long after he helped that horse, Johnny heard a wolf wailing in pain. Now, if you ever heard that sound, you know it ain't pretty. Ouch! That made Johnny plumb sad. So he went into the woods to find that wailing wolf. When he tracked it down, he saw that it was caught in a hunter's trap. You can bet your apple dumplings he freed that wolf, fed it, and healed its leg. The wolf was so grateful, it followed Johnny everywhere he went. Johnny kept on wandering and planting seeds, and now he had a wolf as a pet. Remember, when Johnny planted the first seeds along Licking Creek, well, after almost 40 years of planting, the area was a-changing. A whole mess of families had settled in the woods, towns and churches had popped up, roads split the forest, and stagecoaches carried more folks into the area. The coaches also carried food. Not only that, but Johnny's apple trees were growing all over the land. He decided it was time to make the long walk to Indiana. That was the frontier now. That was where he and his apple seeds were needed. In the summer of 1847, Johnny spent the night with a kindly family in Indiana. He told them stories before bed. He must have been plumb tuckered out because he stayed with them in their warm house that night. In the morning, when the family awoke, Johnny was still lying by the fire. His limbs were as strong as tree branches. His skin was as shiny as an apple. Johnny Appleseed had grown very old, and his time here on earth was up. It was a right sad day, but not too sad. After all, Johnny Appleseed followed his dream. When you see an apple orchard or bite into a shiny red delicious, you can close your eyes and thank it. The ends. Thanks for watching.